You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you guys?
Great.
Yeah.
We're very giggly and having a great time today.
Well, today I'm going to talk about a family of plants that barely exists.
Ooh.
I don't mean that
I'm
it's
intrigued.
endangered necessarily.
Okay.
I just mean that the plants
Ooh.
are barely there, except when they are
Ooh.
really, really obvious.
I'm intrigued.
Interested.
Also,
Say more.
Little teaser. My topic has to do with plants as well, so I'm very intrigued.
Okay?
A little
We're gonna
teaser.
keep it in the-
My topic has nothing to do with plants.
Keep it partly in the plant kingdom. 2/3 in the plant kingdom this episode, folks. All right. Well, these plants have no leaves, stems, or roots.
How are they plants?
Say what?
Yeah.
That's most
Wait,
of
what?
what a plant is.
No. So no stem. You said
No leaves.
No leaves.
No
no
roots.
leaf, no roots.
No roots. Most
Is
of
it
the
a
time
moth?
they are. No.
What do they have?
They're a flowering plant.
What?
They have a flower. Most of the time, though, they are invisible to the naked eye. So if you're
Okay.
wondering what the heck is up with these plants, here's another clue. They do not photosynthesize.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they mycoheterotrophs?
Are they
No.
saprophyte?
Nope. They are parasitic plants. They are,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm talking about the family Rafflesiaceae. I hope I said that right.
You guys, just full
Solid.
stop here. If Victoria is struggling with a scientific name, we are all in deep trouble.
Yeah, Kirk and I, we're
Because that is
both
her
doomed.
jam.
We cannot help
Yeah,
you
this
on
one-
this, Victoria.
This was a tough one. That name may not sound familiar, but I would bet that you have probably seen a picture of the flowers of this type of plant. They are red
Oh my
with white
gosh.
dots. They have usually 5 petals or sometimes 10.
They're red.
Kind of a gaping hole in the center.
Horrifying.
And they are extremely large. In fact, the largest
starting familiar.
single flower in the world, which is also the world's heaviest flowers in this family. It's the species Rafflesia arnoldii.
Okay. My brain is like tingling, being like, you know this, you know
is
this.
this a bromeliad? Like, what are we?
No.
No.
Bromeliad. So the flowers of our arnoldii, I'm going to say that Raffles thing as little as possible from now on.
Fair
Our
enough.
arnoldii are
Perfect.
up to 1 meter across and weigh up to 11
my.
kilograms.
Oh. That's
That's large. For
That's
a-
that is
large.
heavy. Where are they?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
Oh,
But
man.
another thing, like the species that
She's
Rachel
teasing us so
talked
badly.
about on a previous episode, this is another plant that is known as the corpse flower for its delightful
Oh, okay.
scent. Yeah.
Good.
And it, as you might guess, it's probably pollinated by flies.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, let's talk a little bit more about how these plants make their living. They live in South and Southeast Asia, you were asking, mainly in
Okay.
rainforests.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, no leaves, stems, or roots. Most of the time, they exist
There's-
only as just a thin ribbon of cells within the flesh of their hosts.
Oh. They
Yeah,
are fully
which are-
parasitic. Okay.
They're fully parasitic, which are vines. Their hosts are vines that belong to a
Whoa.
particular genus in the grapevine family.
Okay.
Cool.
Nuts. What?
Yeah. So when they are finally ready to reproduce, they will push out a bud from somewhere on one of these vines, which then slowly develops into a giant stinky flower.
Wow.
And yeah, in some ways they really behave more like a fungus. So that thread of cells is in some ways a lot more like a mycelium than any usual structure that a plant has. But they are in fact plants. And, admittedly, all this is pretty weird.
Yeah.
But these plants...
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Just a little.
These plants are also really strange on a genetic level.
Oh, good. I wouldn't want it to just be on surface level. I want it to go past flower deep.
All in, yeah.
Yes. So some biologists at Harvard recently did a genetic analysis of one of the species in this family. It's called Sapria himalayana. That's a lot easier to pronounce than the other one. So they discovered
a saprophyte from the Himalayas?
Yes.
There we go.
It does in fact grow
Wonderful
at higher
name.
altitudes. I don't know if they actually grow in the Himalayas, but like higher altitudes in tropical rainforest type of places.
Okay.
So they discovered that Sapria himalayana has lost 44% of the genes that pretty much all other flowering plants have.
Wow, that's...
I was literally just wondering that. Like, if they have a very, I want to say cogent, that's not the right word. Like, very, if their DNA is very, like, efficient, shall we say.
Yeah, so it's pretty normal for parasitic plants to lose chlorophyll.
Right.
And if you remember, Rachel talked about the ghost plant in an early episode, which I grew up knowing as Indian pipe. But this takes it to an extreme. It seems to have lost all its genes related to photosynthesis and has even lost all genetic trace, they believe, of their chloroplasts, which are the little subcellular units that
make sugar.
Do the photosynthesis. Yes.
Yeah.
And chloroplasts have their own DNA, much like mitochondria. And, Kirk talked a little bit about how those organelles came to be evolutionarily. But yeah, so you were saying, Kirk, you thought maybe it has stripped down its genome to a more cogent, stripping out all the extra stuff it didn't need. You might think that.
Is it the opposite?
But no. They have lost a bunch of those plant genes from flowering plants, but they have a whole lot of additional genetic material that it seems to have just stolen from its current and former hosts.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
Love it.
Okay.
So it's like a bunch of extra genes that it probably doesn't really need, and a bunch of nonsense DNA and like repeating sequences that, as far as anybody can tell, don't really do anything. And this is all by what's called horizontal gene transfer from its hosts.
Right.
Okay.
So that's like basically stealing genes.
Yeah. When they're replicating, they're taking some from their host as they're replicating to actually reproduce and like grow, make new cells and things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. So what it means by horizontal is it's not passed down from a mother cell to a daughter cell. It's
right.
Yeah, from one generation to the same generation, but a different species.
Wild.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this parasite is sort of a DNA kleptomaniac, and it just cannot stop itself from stealing genetic material from its host, even though it doesn't really need what it's taking. Yeah. And that's the weird thing I have to tell you about this week.
That is awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The main source here was a paper from Current Biology in January 2021 called Deeply Altered Genome Architecture in the Endoparasitic Flowering Plant Sapria himalayana.
That's when I was thinking about pulling this podcast together and doing this, that's exactly the kind of thing I was hoping, is that like my friends would bring me a story of something that I'm just like, I'm sorry, what now? Like, I did not know that. And there's so much strange stuff in this world. I love it that we can share it with each other and share it with our audience. So thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Victoria.
Absolutely. We are going to have a small break, and Kirk will have something for us when we get back.
All right, it's certainly weird.
Hey everybody, it's Kirk. This show is listener supported, so what you're hearing is content that was supported by the members of our Patreon group, the Society of Strange. You can support the show and join the society over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Go check it out, see some of the benefits, and help support a show you enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome back. One of the more infamous stories that I have done on the show was pretty early on, and it was about bat bombs.
I knew you were going to say that.
There it is. I literally had someone listen to this episode, to that episode, not this one. This one is not out yet. But I had them listen to the bat bombs because you referenced it, and they were like, "What? Bat what?" I'm like, hold on.
Well, I had to go look it up. It is episode 10. I did have to really laugh, though, because I don't remember exactly which episode everything was. So I did look it up, and I could have logged into all of our stuff and gone through and said, I'm just going to do a Google search for it and see what pops up. And one of the first sites, hits I got that came back was from a podcast aggregator site in Japan that carries our podcast. So that was kind of cool.
Okay.
Fun.
But I had to laugh because this one of the next hits I got that was actually a good hit that referenced that episode was from iHeartRadio, and iHeartRadio is one of the aggregator services where you can listen to our show. And as I was scrolling through trying to figure out exactly which one was the Bat Bomb episode, I noticed one near episode 10, which is the Bat Bomb one, that was really weird because it was called "Is a Tool?" And I'm like, we don't have an episode called "Is a Tool?"
I think it's called
Poop a Tool.
Yes, exactly. The episode is called "Is Poop a Tool?" and they had censored our title. It uses the word poop. So there you have it. Nothing to do with today's episode, but I can tell you the title of this one will not have that word in it because apparently we're being censored. So sorry, children.
It gets censored.
Poop.
That's the only thing I can think of why that one word would be missing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
That's so silly. That's so silly.
Are people really so sensitive?
No.
Poop.
Well, poop.
Poop.
Right.
I think we are desensitized.
Appreciate that.
Because I talk about it at least once a week. I talk about poop. It happens a lot.
I live with preschoolers. We talk about it daily.
There we go.
So this episode's not about poop. I should just point out. Just to recap for people who didn't listen to that episode yet, and you should. These were bombs that were designed and tested during World War II. For those who somehow missed it, the idea was that thousands of Mexican free-tail bats were trained to wear little timed napalm fire bombs on their back, and then were loaded into one huge bomb that could be dropped over a Japanese city during the daytime, and the bomb would break open and free the bats who'd be like, daylight, and they would seek to roost in people's roofs since it was daytime. And then when the napalm charges went off, they would set all the buildings on fire, basically burning down the entire city.
Right.
It was a completely bonkers idea that, according to the testing,
bat poop crazy, if you will,
worked.
Yeah,
could have worked. But we decided to split the atom instead, which actually Victoria's been talking about in the last couple episodes. So keeping with that same animal theme, I also talked about how B.F. Skinner trained pigeons to be the literal pilots of guided bombs.
Yes.
That was also a really interesting episode. And I think I hinted at the time that I had at least one more story in me of animals used in war.
You did.
So buckle up. Here we go.
Time.
It's finally happening.
I mean, Kirk, I did start things off. I don't know if it was before or after your bat bomb thing, but I talked about the hero pigeon of World War I.
You did.
A little more
you talked about the hero pigeons
uplifting
as well.
than
then sending them to their doom.
Bats.
Go on. It's dark. Back in the 1950s, the U.S. Navy actually started to study dolphins when they wanted to create better torpedoes. And let me stop you right there and just say that I want to assuage any fears. This story does not involve strapping explosives to dolphins and having them swim into enemy boats.
Okay,
Let's
just,
that's a good clarifier to have.
Take a deep breath. This is not what's happening. Okay. The Navy was mostly interested back then in like how these animals use their sonar to navigate and how they were so good at moving through water. So they were studying like the shape of dolphins and things. Yeah. But the Navy's work with dolphins has increased over time, and there are literally right now dolphins serving in the U.S. Navy.
What?
Which
currently?
Yes, the U.S. Navy trains dolphins in San Diego. And these amazing animals perform several tasks that we're aware of. The latest data I could find was sadly out of date, but I know that in 2007 alone, the U.S. Navy spent $14 million on dolphin training and had multiple dolphin crews. And I don't mean crews of humans, they do that, but crews of dolphins with a total of 75 dolphins enlisted.
Wow.
And in data for 2019, the Navy reportedly had 70 dolphins and 30 sea lions that were working with them. And as I said, there's a number of tasks that we're aware of and that they do, and probably a few that maybe the military would prefer we not know about. So I can't talk about those because I don't know about them. So I'm going to talk about the 4 roles that we do for sure know that dolphins play. In the Navy.
Yeah, why are we spending $14 million on dolphin training and things? I want to know more.
Per year. Which in the context of military budgets is
a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
It's a lot to me. It's not that much. So first of all, we have swimmer rescue. And there's many stories of dolphins spontaneously rescuing humans who are on the verge of drowning. They are very smart animals, and they seem to recognize like a fellow mammal in need and will come up and literally help drowning humans, which is very cool. Well, the Navy has used this natural talent and has specifically trained dolphins to be rescue swimmers to save people who are in the water.
That's awesome.
And to date, the trained naval dolphins have actually performed more real-world rescues at sea than trained human divers have.
That's amazing.
So they are...
That is really amazing.
Quite successful. Yeah.
They are in the water.
The second role they do is object recovery. And at first glance, this may sound like something like you would see at SeaWorld, right? Like I think we've all seen, or at the very least seen like a video of like a dolphin bringing back a ball like a dog does. And this isn't exactly what I'm talking about though. So dolphins can locate and in some cases retrieve items from the seabed even. That humans can't find. So they've found lost things on the seafloor. Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a really famous case too you can look up. I'm not going to go into all the details on it, but there was a case where some dolphins located, I believe it was like a torpedo that had been used in like testing during I think World War II that was lost off the coast of California, and they're able to recover this like prototype because the dolphins found it underwater, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
It could perhaps be argued that the third and fourth roles that dolphins do are really just specialized versions of object recovery. I mean, in one sense, saving a person who's drowning is also kind of object recovery.
Yeah.
But the third use is helping to clear minefields in the water. So underwater mines are very dangerous and difficult to detect. But turns out dolphins are quite talented at finding them. And they're trained to locate the mines and then report back when they find one. And some of these dolphins even wear like electronic little things on their flippers, like cameras and GPS type locate. And I say GPS, I mean, I don't think that would work underwater, but sort of, equipment
radar
that helps the humans locate where they are. So they can basically, the dolphins have a way to communicate and say, hey, I found one, and like kind of ping their location and be like, here it is, which is like And then humans have to go in and disarm them. They don't give a little, bomb diffusing kit to the dolphins. They're not. Right. They're just going, I found one, and then they get like free fish. So
I was wondering how the dolphins and the humans were communicating between each other, because we haven't mastered interspecies communication yet. But that's great. I'm glad we figured that out.
We haven't mastered, but like certainly an animal smart as a dolphin is very capable of communicating with humans through lots of different ways. It could be as simple as you basically train them the same way you train a dog. So you might say, hey, if you find a mine, I want you to, bounce up and down in the water, or slap your tail in the water, or you could do all kinds of different ways. I think they actually have some way that there's some behavior the dolphin does that electronically then signals that they found one.
Okay. Like maybe they rock back and forth or something like that.
Yeah, the sources I found did not go into that level of detail. I'm guessing some of that is they'd rather not reveal that, but they definitely are communicating with the humans what's going on. And like I said, it is the same operant conditioning stuff you use to train a pet at home or like a police dog. They're basically having similar function to something like that.
Yeah.
Now the fourth role is pretty wild, and this is the one that I had just no idea they were doing. I think I saw some movie years ago, maybe like a James Bond movie or something like that, where like a scuba diver swims into a port at night and attaches explosives to the bottom of a ship, and then like blows it up, or it swims away, and then maybe the next day or an hour later or something, it blows up, and no one ever knew they were there.
Sounds like a Bond
old
movie.
Stories in the old days of. Yeah, I've even heard stories in the old days of wooden boats, of people swimming under boats and like drilling holes in the bottom of boats and sinking them and stuff. And I've heard those stories, and you go, why don't we see that more often? Because it actually seems like a scuba diver or something going under a boat and attaching an explosive under it would actually be fairly easy in the grand scheme of things. Well, it turns out part of why we don't see that is because of the dolphins.
What?
This is apparently enough of a concern that someone may try to do this to a boat, that the U.S. Navy actually uses dolphins for fleet protection.
Wow.
And one of the teams of dolphins has been trained to detect any divers in the water and then report their locations to humans. Like, hey, I found someone swimming here, something's going on. And they'll just like swim around the fleet looking for humans in the water.
They're aquatic security.
Which is, they are aquatic security, exactly. Which is wild, and they have actually been used this way in the field in real conditions during both the Second and First Gulf Wars.
Wow.
Dolphins were actually used because there's a lot of naval ships that were in waters where there's a lot of boats and a lot of nations that were not really happy about what was going on there, and when might try to sink a boat, and actually did attack U.S. boats in those waters. And so they were actually had those dolphins working to protect boats in those fleets, which is really wild and bizarre.
Yeah.
So that's what I have today. I have dolphins working for the Navy.
That's pretty amazing. Sure. I have some thoughts, Kirk, and one of my questions is, do the dolphins retire? And if they do, would they just say so long and thanks for all the fish?
Yeah. I have
that is such a terrible joke. I mean, I applause.
Good job.
Very nice. To seriously answer your not so serious question, which was just a chance to put a joke in. I would assume they do retire at some point.
Okay.
But I did not have any information on that.
Where do they keep these dolphins? Because these aren't wild dolphins, right? They're
no. The training apparently all takes place in San Diego. That's the place that I know of. And they just do regular training. And these are dolphins who are trained to travel, so they can get them anywhere in the world within 72 hours. Whoa. Obviously, it's not going to help if someone falls overboard and you're like, call the dolphins. But they definitely, you know what I mean? We'll be right there. But I think they'll even fly them places and stuff to get them around the world.
Okay.
So these are very highly trained animals. And there's been, I just talked about the U.S. Navy. There's actually a number of navies around the world who've experimented with using seals and beluga whales and all kinds of different animals to try to to try to spy or to try to locate things. And there's some pretty interesting history of how navies have used aquatic mammals to either learn more about how we can do things better or to literally do things like protect boats, which is really cool.
That's crazy.
Well, this was much more fun and less depressing than the other 2 entries in this series.
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't involve any dolphins blowing up, which I was really happy about. I was really worried that's what I was going to discover when I went down the rabbit hole, but I didn't. So I'm happy about that. Well, we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we will have Rachel, who I guess has another plant story for us, it sounds like, and we're going to find out.
Well, we're back, and like I promised, I have a plant topic for us today. We are officially 84 episodes in. This is episode 84. And I think it's time. Yeah. And I think it's time to discuss what I consider to be the elephant in the room. Not the actual elephant. We'll get to them probably. But cactus. We've gone 84 episodes. And not once have we talked about and covered the bizarreness that is cactus.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay.
They've been tangentially mentioned, perhaps, but not
specifically.
Gotten the spotlight.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I don't want to talk about cactus
and they're strange.
In general. They're so strange, and they have their own wild adaptations, and where they call home is just super intense. The desert.
Oh, but you're going specific here.
I'm going specific because otherwise it would take ages if I was going to cover the entirety of cactus.
You could do the cactus podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would decide this week to take the plunge, and I wanted to talk about a pretty famous cactus, actually, that is insane on its own. All right. Today, I want to talk about his specific cactus. It's actually like a super famous one. I want to make sure I say it correctly. Hold on. It is.
We should be placing bets at this time. Which one it is?
Oh yeah, you should, because it's really good.
I'm making movements with my lips as to which one I think it is.
Ooh, it is.
That's what I was going to do. Some hand gestures.
Yeah, it actually is that one. It is the saguaro cactus.
As people at home are like, what hand gestures?
Yeah, Kirk, this is an audio medium.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a saguaro.
I'm not trying to I didn't want to take away your thunder. It's why people have seen a saguaro in cartoons. It's the one that looks like a little bit like a wild, wacky, waving arm guy.
Mm-hmm. It looks
right. So it's like
when you picture a cactus, this is what you picture. It is quite literally the symbol of the American.
I was doing like the arms, cactus with the big arms. Yeah,
exactly.
You picture Wile E. Coyote and
exactly, and its flower actually is the state flower of Arizona.
Makes sense.
Now, these particular cacti are just truly astonishing. So cacti in general already have to deal with pretty intense conditions based on the fact, pretty much because they are living in a desert. There's not a lot of water, as is, the habitat of the desert. There's only minimal amounts of water that come every single year. So a lot of plants and animals do what they can to minimize loss of water. The saguaro does this by having a really thick, waxy coating all over its entirety, and it actually uses, because of that waxy coating, it doesn't use. There's several different kinds of photosynthesis, and the kind that it uses is really interesting. I don't remember off the top of my head what the name of that particular kind of photosynthesis is, but it's really cool. And I'm going to talk about it at some point.
More efficient?
It is more efficient.
We're going to save it for a future episode.
We are going to save it for a future episode. These particular plants, saguaros, the type of photosynthesis that they use, part of the process for photosynthesis happens at night. So the entire process, the general idea behind photosynthesis is that you put water and sunshine in, and carbon dioxide, and then on the other side, oxygen, water, and sugar come out.
Yeah.
Part of the process.
The little black box that is photosynthesis. Yeah.
Exactly. And when you're in the desert, you do not want to have a lot of water leave because it's very important.
Yeah.
But I won't get too much into the photosynthesis of this cactus because we have other things to talk about. So the saguaro is...
So I just want to clarify, though, because you started to say that part of it happens at night.
So is it the part that involves CO2?
Is it the...
It's the part
releasing
that...
the CO2?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if they open those stomata during the day, they'd also lose too much moisture.
Exactly. So they're opening their stomata at night.
Okay. Because when you first said like photosynthesizing at night, I'm like, there's no sun at night, Rachel. But I get it. It's just part of the process.
It is part of the process. Yeah.
Awesome. That's
so
strange.
it's not the
That's
whole
weird.
thing.
I love it.
It is very weird. And that is a whole other like section to talk about with that type of photosynthesis. It's been on my list for a while. Anyway, sneak peek. This particular cactus, however, is strange on its own besides all of the photosynthesis. So this particular cactus, the tallest that has ever been found, is 78 feet tall.
Oh
no!
Oh man, I knew they could get big, but that is really
no.
big.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
78 feet, not 7.8. You haven't misplaced a decimal.
Nope. 78 feet tall.
70.
Pull the other one.
Here's the thing. That is the tallest specimen. Okay. On average, they are about. They grow about 40 feet tall, which is still a lot.
Yeah, they are big. They are
very large.
That's a 4-story building. Like.
Yeah. They get very, very large. Now, I want you to think about this. You grow that tall in the desert. Are you a fast-growing plant or are you slow?
Slow, probably.
I mean, I feel like you're asking us, which means it's a trick question. So I would say slow, because it takes a long time to get big. But the fact that you're asking it, I think it's a switcheroo, and I'm going to say they grow fast, Rachel.
Ooh. I'm sorry, it wasn't a switcheroo. Victoria's right.
Yeah, no, it would make no sense for them to grow that fast. So
exactly. So these cacti are generally found in like Arizona and southwestern part of Arizona. There's an entire national park just dedicated to preserve their habitat.
I have been there.
Oh, so cool. And that goes down into Mexico. They are slow growing. And they are the largest cactus in the United States. But the growth rate of the cactus does depend on precipitation.
Okay.
They grow really slowly from seed, and after 2 years, they can be about 1/4 of an inch tall.
Oh, that's so wee.
Yeah, it's very, very little. So they, it's just, they're crazy. They grow incredibly slowly. And part of that is just due to the environment that they are in. They are actually a keystone species. A lot of animals and other creatures in the desert and people who made their home in the desert relied on this particular plant. But because they grow so slowly, it takes a long time for them to gain sexual maturity. It takes them it takes anywhere between 20 and 50 years for them to be a meter high.
Oh, wow.
Which is not a lot of it's not a lot of feet for a cacti. And that, in which case, that actually means and causes it to be, it takes about 70 years for it to reach sexual maturity.
Wow.
Before it can take up to 70 years. It can also, depending on where it is, they can start producing flowers at about 35 years of age. And those are found at the end of the main trunk. And generally speaking, also along where the arms are, the iconic arms. Not every saguaro has those arms. Those don't appear before. I flip my numbers around. Those don't appear until 50 to 70 years of age. And these cacti regularly get to be 150 to 200 years old.
Wow. Yeah, I know when I was down there, and that's why I was going to be so surprised if you were saying that the answer was they grew fast, because I thought they grew slow. She was trying to trick me. The ones that were down there were highly protected, and so there was, you would see people transplanting them if there was something like, say, a highway or something had to go through somewhere, like every single one would be dug up, boxed up, and carefully moved, and they keep very careful tabs on them and protect them very gingerly.
The cool thing is like the roots themselves, they radiate, the roots go down into the soil, and I say this, they protect them off of your protection comment because they are really sensitive to things like roads and construction and people going near them, because the roots themselves don't go super duper deep. They have one root that goes about 2 feet deep, and that's like its main like anchor. But otherwise, most of the roots are within like 6 inches from the top of the soil, So they're
That's
not
wild that they can stay standing up at all if they're like 40,
they're
50
not
feet
far.
tall. And
Yeah, and those roots will like span outwards more. They are really truly called like the trees of the desert. But they really need as much support as they can get. One thing that's really cool about the saguaro is they actually absorb they absorb a lot of water. If it rains, they will absorb and actually like inflate, like all of their tissues will collect as much water as possible, where they can, I think, what was it? It was somewhere like at least a gallon of water can be held. I think it was more than that, but at least a gallon of water can be held within within a saguaro. To give you a little context too, if it is fully hydrated, the saguaro cactus, like an average one, can weigh between 1,500 and 2,200 kilograms.
Whoa.
So they're really, really heavy, and they're really intense plants.
But it's all water weight.
It is. Oh my God. Yes, it is. These are just really interesting cacti, and the fact that they are able to branch off, and it takes so long for them to branch off, and then they have spines because they are cacti, which is a type of protection against animals, which I don't think works very well because they are a keystone species. Like there are pictures of house sparrows, which we see here in Minnesota, hanging out on saguaro cactuses.
The Gila woodpecker will make the holes in them.
Absolutely.
That other animals will use. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And like they're a really important plant for a lot of animals. They have their flowers that bloom. They're a really pretty like white flower that goes on the tips of the arms or the top of the stem. These flowers, they can't self-pollinate, so they rely on pollinators, including honeybees and the lesser long-nosed bat. So they are really, they use a lot of bats, and they actually use white-winged doves as well as pollinators, which is really cool. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch base with cactus, and I wanted to talk about cactus because we haven't talked about it, and this is a really large and crazy one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for such a pointed conversation.
That was terrible, Kirk.
Oh, boy.
Well, sorry.
Well, thank you all for
listening. Don't mean to have a prickly ending like that. We'll just,
How long have you been holding on to these?
Well, just waiting for the right moment.
Well, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you then. Bye.
Cactus joke.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.